Welcome to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective and creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Greetings, welcome, and thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. It's Christian of Standing Stones Healing, bringing you part 2 of a 2-part episode on online classes for your Reiki business. Now, if you missed part 1, you can go back and tune in last week. It was all about live online classes for your Reiki business. So the pros, the cons of setting up a live, real-time, synchronous class for your Reiki business. And in this episode, we're talking about the not live classes for your Reiki business. So when we teach online classes in our Reiki business, we can teach them live, in real time, directly with our students, just like we would in person, or we can teach them not live. So when we are not with our students directly in real time. Now, I talked about one way that you can set up a live online class in your Reiki business, and there are lots of ways to do that, as well as lots of ways to set up a not live class. So an online class that we might offer in our Reiki business that is not live is typically going to be self-paced for students, but it doesn't have to be. I'll talk about that in a minute. But not live classes are typically asynchronous. So in last week's episode, I used the term synchronous. This means when all of the students are going through the coursework all at the same time, as opposed to asynchronous, where students can move through the coursework at their own pace, generally speaking. And so an asynchronous class might be self-paced, but it doesn't have to be. Are you confused yet? The moral of the story is that when we're talking about online classes, there are so many possibilities and there is so much to consider. It's why this topic is 2 episodes and it could be a heck of a lot more episodes. But in last week's episode, I encouraged you that when you go live in your classes and you're teaching a live online class, to record that class. So whether that's on Facebook or Zoom, wherever it might be, record that. Because you can use that recording, those recordings, to create a self-paced, not live class for your Reiki business. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you teach Reiki and you teach that Saturday model where let's say you're teaching Reiki 1 in one day over the stretch of the day. Record those videos. Record all of the teaching that you do and everything else. You can then take those recordings and cut them up into videos and turn that into a self-paced Reiki class so that you are teaching the course, sharing the information with students, answering questions, and then using that to create a self-paced course. Now, one of the things that's really nice about doing this is that you don't have to teach the same things over and over and over again, so that you don't have to say the same things, keep repeating yourself, and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just saying the same stuff over and over and over again. Wouldn't it be so nice if I didn't have to keep saying the same things over and over in each class? Yes, you don't have to. It is nice. And recording yourself as you're teaching is one way to do that. So taking those recordings, cutting them up, and having them function as a self-paced class that your students can move through and they can watch the videos on their own time. Now, you can also record videos where you're not teaching live. So let's say that you feel more comfortable teaching, but in a not live environment, and maybe you want to have a really polished look for your recorded classes. You can do that outside of teaching live. One of the drawbacks about teaching live is that things happen. Technical glitches come up, challenges come up. And also if you're recording on Zoom, Zoom is not the best recording software because Zoom compresses the video and in order to save bandwidth, and the recording quality is not as high on Zoom as it is on other platforms. Like, for instance, if you are just recording the videos for your class on your computer, they're probably going to be a higher quality than if you record them on Zoom. So Zoom recordings are not the highest quality. Same thing with going live on Facebook. And so if you do it that way, the recording quality might not be as high. And so you might say, well, I would like higher quality recordings for my classes, my self-paced classes. And I would like to not have technological glitches, and although they could come up anytime, but I also would not like to worry about editing out my students or anything like that. Then yes, indeed, you can record the course teachings on your own time and have them as a self-paced class. Now, I've done this plenty of times in my Reiki business as well. And the challenge becomes then, okay, I've recorded these, I have these recordings, now how do I deliver them? And this is where for a lot of Reiki business owners, the tech can get a lot more challenging and even confusing. And you have a lot of options. The easiest, cheapest, and most free way of doing this is to either upload those videos to somewhere like Google Drive or Dropbox and share the link, or YouTube. You can always upload your videos to YouTube and share the links. And so here's how this might look. Let's say you're teaching Reiki 1 and you want to do this in a self-paced kind of way that's not live, and you want your students to watch the videos rather than teaching them live. So you record the videos, upload them to YouTube, upload them as unlisted so that not everybody can see them. And then you share those links with your students. So once they purchase the class, you then email them, or even better, if you can set it up as an auto send, depending upon all of your tech. But if you can't, it's fine. No big deal. Just manually email them the links to the videos for the course. They can watch them on their own time frame. Now, some of you might be thinking, great, Christian, what about if I'm teaching Reiki and I need to attune my students? What do I do then? Well, in that case, you can have a hybrid class. And this is where we have a class that is both live and not live. Now, I will say currently in my Reiki business, this is how I teach Reiki. So I have it set up where my students can get the videos, the training materials immediately and learn the materials so they can move through it at their own pace. And then they can, at this point, schedule with me to have their attunement live. So my Reiki 1 class, for instance, right now is a hybrid class, a combination between live and not live, in which they are moving through the training videos themselves at their own pace. And then once they've completed the Reiki coursework videos, then they schedule with me for their attunement. I do this on an individual basis so that each student that I teach in Reiki right now is doing it individually, kind of like a Reiki mentoring setup. I have also taught Reiki in a hybrid format where the students are synchronous. So when we meet live, it's in real time, but when they move through the coursework, it's a self-paced kind of experience. So I've taught Reiki 1 in the past where everyone starts at the same time. They all get the training videos. They have 2 weeks to go through the course content, the manual, watch everything, do all of the exercises, and then we have a live class session where we all meet, answer questions, discussions, exercises with me and the other students in the class. And so there's that interaction, that connection, but they have the convenience of moving through everything, all of the training materials at their own pace before we meet, and we do the attunements live. Now you might be thinking, Christian, when you do it this way, how do you guarantee that the students actually did the trainings, went through the coursework, that they actually paid attention, and that they aren't just showing up for the attunement? I don't. I don't have a way to guarantee that. But here's the thing. When we teach live, whether online or in person, we don't have a way to guarantee that the students are paying attention and that they're getting it then. Of course, we can give a test. Absolutely, we can always give a test. My discussions are almost like a test in that way where I can check in and I ask the students right up front, what did you think about the training materials? What stood out for you? And so that discussion is a, quote, check on whether or not they actually absorb the materials. But when we teach, we can never guarantee that our students are paying attention. We can never guarantee that they are invested. We can only provide them with the tools to be invested. We can only provide them with the opportunity. Whether we teach online or in person, it's up to the student to be invested. And ultimately, we can't make our students pay attention if they're not into it, if they're not interested in being motivated to pay attention. Now, of course, if a student is signing up for a class and paying for a class and showing up for a class, there's a greater chance that they are paying attention, but I will say also, not always. I don't know about you in your Reiki business, but I have had students pay for classes, all kinds of classes, Reiki business classes, non-Reiki classes, who haven't shown up or who haven't been invested. And that's not our fault. We can never make someone be invested in something. In the past, back in the day, I was a professor at a college, and I was having a faculty meeting with other college professors, and a religion professor said to me in a meeting, he said, I just really wish that my students would be as invested in the class as I am. I want my students to get out of the class what I got out of it. And I said to him, they won't. They never will, because you've gotten something out of it for yourself, and that's very individual to you. And your students are not you. And it was like a light bulb went off for him. Like, yes, religion professor, your religion students, the vast majority of them, like 99.9% of them, are not going to become religion professors. And so when we have students who are not as invested in the course and the material as we are, that's just part of everyone's individual experience. So how do I make sure that students are absorbing the material? I have the discussion with them, but we can only do so much as teachers. Our students have to do the work as well. Now, that's one way that you can offer a self-paced class. Other ways that you can do it are through a actual course platform, like a Teachable or a Thinkific. If you're going to use these do incur more cost. One thing that I don't like about them that I have found in my own experience is that it takes extra effort to log in. And anytime we have extra effort or friction to do something, there's less of a chance that we're going to do it. And so that means that when you have students take a class on a platform that they have to log into, there's less of a chance that they are going to log in and participate in the course. When you use these kinds of platforms, though, you can set up what is called drip content. Now, drip content is when your students are moving through the material in a synchronous kind of way. So let's say that you have all of your students start on your Thinkific platform course at the same time, and you want them to get all of the material at the same time and move through it at a particular pace. You can set that up with what is called, quote, drip content. I know it's a weird term, but it's because the idea is that the content drips, the classes drip to the students on a specific schedule. So that the class isn't live, but the students are moving through it in a synchronous kind of way, all at the same time. And then, of course, along with that timed release of the course content, you can indeed have live meetings with the students or not. And so you can have that as completely self-paced, or you can have it as a hybrid where you're throwing in live meetings along with it. One of the amazing things about offering online classes is that you can do this in just so many different ways. Like, the sky is the limit, and it is exciting. One thing that I've found that I like to do in my Reiki business is to create self-paced courses that work to reduce that friction between logging in. And one way that I do that is with embedded PDFs. And so I started doing this. The first time that I did this was with my Reiki manual, where I had my Reiki manual set up, a digital manual, where I had all of the teachings, the information, and then I started embedding links to articles that I had written or videos. And from there, I started to embed course content. So the recordings of the classes embedded into the PDF, so that as students read, they could click on the content and watch in the PDF. I have personally found that I like delivering course content in this way because it reduces that friction for the student, where they don't have to log in to a separate platform to participate in the course. They can just get the content as a PDF, open it up in their email, however they get it delivered, probably via email, and be able to move through it in that way. One concern with delivering course content in this way is that it's a lot easier to share course content. So it's a lot easier for someone to share the PDF. So that is a concern. And that's why when it comes to my course, Build Your Reiki Business, which is a comprehensive course. It's a massive course. It's the world's most comprehensive Reiki business program. There's so much content in that course that I want to protect the intellectual property of, that course is housed on Thinkific. You do have to have a login for that course. But again, there's that extra step that students have to take that is a barrier to their participation. I think when we consider courses and creating courses, it's important for us to consider what the friction points are and what the barriers are to completion of the course. And so things like the tech with Zoom, for instance, or the login with a separate platform, or figuring out how to use that platform. Any and all of those things are barriers for our students. We cannot remove all barriers. So we can't remove all barriers, but I think it's helpful for us to consider the kinds of barriers that might come up, the kinds of challenges that might come up to having our students join and complete our online courses, just like we might consider that for an in-person course. Maybe, the location isn't the best in terms of driving there or parking, or the room is too small, or it's cold, or whatever it might be. Considering our courses from the student standpoint and accessibility, whether online or in person, I think is really helpful. But let's admit that online courses are pretty exciting because we can serve anyone all over the world and reach and help more students. And the convenience factor for us is a big plus. When someone purchases one of my courses like Unlock Your Card Magic, they can start right away. There's nothing that I have to do. It's all automated. It's all set up. They click to buy. They get it immediately in their inbox. They get the full course. They can move through it at their own pace. It's all self-paced, and they are good to go. So when we do a course in this way, it's a lot of work up front. The recording of the videos, no matter how it is, whether we do it live or record them separately, the setting up of the technology, the creation of the course and everything else, it's a lot of work up front. But then the work is minimal once it's all done up front. And so, like, for instance, if you go purchase Unlock Your Card Magic, you can start that right now. And there's zero work on my end because it's all been done. And that is pretty convenient for sure. So, do you do self-paced courses in your Reiki business? What kind of online courses do you offer, and how do you offer them? Are they synchronous, asynchronous, live, self-paced, hybrid? How do you do it? There are so many possibilities. Come join us in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group and tell us all about it at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz. And yes, if you want to know more about starting and building your own online distance Reiki business so that you too can create courses in your sweatpants. And yes, indeed, you can start that self-paced program right now. Check it out at standingstoneshealing.com/distance-biz. Yep, the link is down below. So no matter what kinds of courses you offer in your Reiki business, online, offline, whatever they might look like, of course, I'm sending lots of blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and send to a friend. Learn more about the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business.